It's time for Takes on Takes, the weekly episode where we give our take on your take today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate you all being here very, very much.
Happy Friday to you here on the program.
Happy Friday.
And takes on Fridays. It's always the best.
Yeah, people gave us some good stuff to dive into this week. I say we jump right into it. And we got a lot of takes on the Jonnu Smith news. And I think Tua's burner gave us the most reasonable phrasing.
Is it actually Tua's burner?
That's the self-proclaimed Tua's burner. I don't know. That'd be interesting if it really was.
I'm gonna DM him.
Well, here's the take. Maybe how they phrase the Jonnu Smith thing will tell us if this is truly Tua's burner.
Okay.
The Dolphins are right in exploring a trade for Jonnu instead of extending him. They're obviously attempting to initiate a soft reset by offloading large contracts to older players, and extending an aging player in Jonnu would go against this approach even after last season.
Yeah, I think they're extending Jonnu Smith is something this team should aspire to. But the big point I made on Locked On Dolphins yesterday when we did our second show of the day, the price point has to be right. And if it's not, I don't think it's overly there would not be a congruency between everything else you've done this offseason that appears to be angling towards Chris Kaufman, who does 3 yards per carry in the Dolphin space, has referred to it as they're deleveraging the current group to get ready to make new commitments for the next window, right? Mm-hmm. And we refer to it as life cycles. And right, how they've operated kind of indicates they felt their life cycle was time for a transition, and that how they handled this transition determines whether they become a young contender again, or they have to go back to square one and become a rebuilding franchise, right? My worry for finding the right number for Jonnu Smith is, do you know what the APY was for the Evan Ingram contract?
10 or 11, I would guess. I don't know.
It's like 11 and a half.
Yeah, okay.
For Ingram in his age 30 season to sign in Denver as an F tight end. Do you know what Juwan Johnson's APY was on the contract extension he just signed with the Saints?
10 and a quarter.
10 and a quarter,
yeah.
Right? So Juwan Johnson has never had numbers that ever touched what Jonnu Smith just put up this year in Miami. And, Evan Ingram had 117 catches or whatever it was 2 years ago, but it's kind of like the outlier season, right? And he averaged 9 yards a catch on those 120 catches or whatever he had.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're talking about 10, 11, $11.5 million for and I love Jonnu Smith, but an age 30 tight end when you're a team in transition that's deleveraging or whatever you want to call it, like I don't necessarily think those two things line up. So I do think they're right to kind of say, hey, is there a cash out opportunity here for us as a team with where this player is at respectively versus where our team is at?
Well, yeah, and I wonder how much of last year where it felt like every player was leveraging extension, and it got a little dicey with some guys like sitting out practices. You're back in this boat. Ramsey's going to be traded here in 3 days or something like that. That's a given.
We can only hope that one gets done.
That's going to get
love to have some content next week.
That's going to happen. You have nothing to worry about. And now it's Jonnu Smith. Like, it just kind of flies in the face of what they've tried to do with their, I think, soft reset, deleverage, I think is the right way to put it. Obviously, he's a great player for the system. He had a great season, was the greatest tight end season in Miami history. And I think the sticker shock of people seeing headlines that they would trade that when you compound it with that we know Ramsey's going. We've seen the Dolphins go through some transition. It's like there's a lot of perception out there of what Miami's doing, and it's not like angling towards positioning themselves to be the best team they can be this year. But I think that's kind of a consequence of how the past transactions didn't yield the results. And it's like, all right, how do we move forward in a way that's maybe not going to help us this year, but it's going to be healthy for the long-term outlook of this team.
If things go right and the right players stay healthy, we can be competitive this year. But it's almost like what Baltimore and Buffalo did this past year too, where I think about Baltimore from off the 23 season versus the 24 season. And the ceiling's not as high as those two football teams, but both Baltimore and Buffalo, I think, are significantly better this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they made personnel decisions to make some transition and realign to then cyclically be in a better position the next year to invest significantly again into the roster.
Yeah, and San Francisco kind of a team that's in that conversation now as well.
So. Much more extreme version of that, right? But yeah, and the last thought I have on this, because I don't want this to be a redux of yesterday's show I did in the afternoon. The complaint that existed with the Dolphins offense last year was it became very compressed and compact. And I think there's two ways that you can alleviate that. One is to run more 11 and less 12, right? When you have an inline player and then you have a flex tight end. Structurally, how your formations can be different. But that only works if you have a better third receiver, and they have Malik Washington in year 2, and then they have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine as a physical player who can. If you told me Nick Westbrook-Ikhine was a better blocker in the run game than Jonnu Smith, I might believe it. I inherently believe that to be true, and that was the feedback that John Emery gave Jonnu Smith in a media availability last week, was being better in the run game. But then also, if you want to have better spacing, your blocking surfaces, you need to be more impactful with less bodies, right? And Miami they were dead last in the league last year in run attempts out of 11 personnel. They couldn't run the ball out of 11. They had, I think it was 88 rush attempts last year out of 11 personnel across 17 games. That invites bigger blocking surfaces and everything being compact.
Yeah.
Jonah Sabayanaya, James Daniels, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine as a wide receiver, Austin Jackson healthy again. You kind of look and say, okay, like your 6-man blocking surfaces might be a little bit more reliable this year, which would then allow you to space the field. So if that happens, is Jonnu Smith going to have the same opportunities in the passing game this year that he had last year, based off of how they had to implement to try to do balanced offense things?
A nuanced take on the Jonnu Smith conversation as opposed to just social media reaction. Much better. Let's get to this one from Joe at work. And I did some research on this one. Joe at work says linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, that's the Packers' second-year player, ends the year top 3 in defensive player of the year voting. And here's what I want to say about this. And this has nothing to do with Edgerrin Cooper. All right. So that's going to be step 1. I think Edgerrin Cooper had an amazing finish to his rookie season. And I'm very excited for the player he's going to be for the Packers for a long time. But the reality of defensive player of the year voting, it's not, they don't like off-ball linebackers. I went through 2014 to 2024. These are the only players at off-ball linebacker to finish in the top 10 of voting in an 11-year sample size. You had Zach Bond last year at number 5. In 2023, Fred Warner at 6, Roquan Smith at 8. In 22, 21, 20, 19, and 18, you had 0 off-ball linebackers that placed in the top 10 of defensive player of the year voting. In 2017, Bobby Wagner at 8. At 2016, Sean Lee at 5. At 2015, Luke Kuechly at 3. Bobby Wagner has never been top 3. Fred Warner has never been top 3. Roquan Smith has never been top 3. Edgerrin Cooper's not going to be top 3 next year. It just isn't going to happen. So, no, I don't agree with the take.
I think that is a responsible, well-researched, well-nuanced take by Joe Marino. But I did see Bobby Wagner still making lists as a top 3 linebacker in football. I don't know if you saw that this week.
Right. Well, PFF put out their deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Bobby Wagner.
So you said Bobby Wagner's never been top 3. My first response out of everything you just said was Bobby Wagner, top 3. He is top 3. He's top 3 linebacker.
And PFF's
in 2025.
linebacker. Yeah, but not an actual defensive player of the year votings. So no, Adrian Cooper, you're awesome. I'm excited for you, but it's just not going to happen. That's not how this is a defensive line award. That's what it's become. Defensive line award.
Yep.
All right. Coming up next, Dr. Rowe thinks that the Falcons have the most improved defense, but I'd say not so fast. I think there's several of the teams that have the most improved defense going into this coming season. We'll explore that and more on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You know you're watching these playoffs, and boy, I've been having a lot of fun. We don't get the Thunder, my tradition of betting the over on SGA. I don't get that to the finals, but we got Pacers and Knicks this weekend. Right, Brunson. Go over on the Brunson. That's the thing to do there. That's been fun. And boy, I cashed out nice on that parlay I told you guys about yesterday for the Edmonton game. So I'll be excited for getting in on some action for the Stanley Cup Finals between the Oilers and the Panthers. So check it out. Make these playoffs even more exciting. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Vamos Gatos.
Yes, Vamos Gatos. I'm in on the Gatos, even though I'm very thankful for the Oilers and the extra funds they provided me for the weekend. But we are, we got to go with the Panthers. All right. Dr. Rowe says Atlanta will be the most improved defense of 2025. They are getting 2+ drafts worth of help due to the delayed introduction of players from last year, calling out Rook, Arohoro, Braylon Trice, and Brandon Dorless, plus getting Pierce by borrowing from 2026. Yeah, the Falcons is the most improved defense, Kyle. I do not. I do not. I had 3 other teams that I thought were emphatically more improved personnel-wise.
Okay, who are the 3 teams that, off your head, are more improved personnel defenses?
The Patriots, the Cardinals, and the Panthers. Those defenses will take greater leaps than Atlanta this year.
So how are we measuring this?
Just who you thought from a personnel, like what defense do you think is going to be better?
There's no objective.
No, it's not measurable. I think EPA per play is probably the best way to, if we wanted to look at this and actually tangibly measure it, because that's the most meaningful, I think, defensive metric that holistically captures how good a defense is. I think Arizona, Carolina, and New England are better. We'll have better leaps in Atlanta.
I guess my worry with measuring is the questions I would have is where do the schedules allow that to happen?
I didn't even think about schedules. Yeah,
right. But that's, if you're just doing it subjectively, then we could say Carolina's got the most room to go up.
Everywhere to go but up.
And if you want to measure it, they were minus 8.5 defensive EPA per game this season. The next worst team was Jacksonville at minus 6.5. And then the Patriots were 30th, and they were minus 3.5.
That defense is going to be so much. It's going to be the Patriots, dude. Defense is loaded, man.
But they got to play the Bills twice.
Yeah, and the Patriots last year gave the Bills troubles with their crap defense. The Patriots always play the Bills good on defense.
If I remember correctly, the Patriots have a pretty soft
They have one of the easiest schedules going. Yep. It's going to be the Patriots.
Let me look at their schedule this year.
You want to talk about an infusion of defensive talent. Can we talk about Arizona? With all due respect to Dr. Rowe's premise, he's talking about 3 players that I didn't think much of as prospects. taking a step where I think there's complicating factors based on other players they brought in actually making an impact.
Right. I think that's invoking the 24 draft class. I don't think helps.
No.
Because it's like, okay, you're talking Rook, Brandon Dorlus, and Braylon Trice, and I didn't like 2 of those 3 guys coming out of the draft. So, New England, Raiders at Dolphins, Steelers, Panthers, at Bills, at Saints, at Titans, Browns, Falcons.
I like what I'm hearing. I like what I'm hearing, Kyle.
Jets, home on Thursday. At Cincinnati. Okay.
Right. Giving up some yards there. But they got Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. That might be the best pair of corners you could put out there to face against Higgins and Chase.
New York Giants, bye week.
Come on, man.
Bye week to prep for Buffalo at home.
This is going to be a top 10 defense.
At Baltimore, at Jets, home against Dolphins, week 18, January 4th.
Patriots, man.
Okay. I think I like what the Cardinals. No. Do the Cardinals have. You called this. You said
I told you we had rabbit holes.
We're going to get some long takes in today.
Yeah, I know, and I got to be real
Cardinals
choosy.
need to get some off-ball linebackers. We need to get somebody to play.
Kaiser White's coming, right? He's coming.
He needs to, and he needs.
Mac Will. He's showing his rap skills, which I think I was blown away by that video of him rapping out the schedule. I thought it was really good.
We need to get some sturdy off-ball linebacker play before I'm ready to put Arizona in the conversation with New England. But I think New England can call out.
Arizona's got to find the who's the backer that got traded like 3 times last year? Ernest Jones. They got to find the Ernest Jones this year. You know,
who's going to pinball around like that we can end up skipping the line on and just go get that guy right away. Yeah,
right.
Jermaine Pratt.
Honestly. Well, but the Bengals don't trade players that request to be traded, so they gotta.
Okay,
then trade. What did they draft all those linebackers for? They drafted
Demetrius Knight in the top 60,
and then another one. They drafted another one right after that.
So, go ahead and trade Jermaine Pratt. Be done with it, or trade Logan Wilson because on principle you can't trade the guy that requested the trade. So trade the guy who didn't request the trade. Whatever.
Yeah, Arizona call up Cincinnati.
Get something done.
I think the landline in Cincinnati is valuable. I think they paid the bill, so you should be able to get through. And,
they're going to pick up the phone, and say, "We're not trading Trey Hendrickson," and they're like, "We're not calling for Trey Hendrickson."
It's okay. We don't want Trey Hendrickson.
No, here's out.
Oh man! All right. AJ says this: when the league goes to 18 games, they should end place-based scheduling. Instead, here's how he would like to see the 18 games divvied up. 6 division games. That doesn't change. Then you have 4 against another division.
Okay.
4 against a second division and 4 against a third division. So you're just playing 3 complete other divisions. I don't like this because I like variety. I want to see, like, the Bills play the Panthers once every 4 years. This, me,
go ahead.
Once every 8 years, like at opposing stadiums. Like, I don't know. I like the idea of seeing more random opportunities to play teams as opposed to, well, I guess he didn't specify conferences. I don't know. I don't know if I like this.
Yeah, I took this take as the AFC plays the AFC and the NFC plays the NFC. And it's almost like, remember when interleague play was a big deal in baseball?
Yeah, and I always wanted to see those games more. I wanted to see them more.
I was like, oh man, the Yankees play the Braves this weekend? Like, whoa.
Right.
That's crazy. Oh, the Red Sox play the Mets?
Yeah.
Right? Like I tried to get a Mets one in there.
Yeah,
so
thanks,
and it was like a big deal. And it's not like that anymore. And then interleague play only really happened, it was like July and early August was the only time you had interleague play, right? Am I remembering?
Yeah, it was like this big 2-week thing. Like, here it is, guys.
Here you go.
You get your NL teams get to use a designated hitter. You had the AL pitchers. Now they had to hit. Now that doesn't exist, right? There's DL. I call it the DL. It's the DH. The DH is a permanent thing on both leagues, but like those dynamics made it very interesting.
Man, I'll never forgive him for getting rid of making the pitchers hit.
You like that?
Yeah, there's more strategy. How do you navigate the bottom couple spots in the lineup?
Boy, you knew on a 7-8-9 you're going to be all right that inning.
Yep.
Your
and you knew if you walked the 8 and then the pitcher got a hit, you knew you were in trouble. You're like, oh, this could be a disaster.
Right. Or this is the worst. The 7 hitter gets on, the 8 hitter hits a can of corn and then the ground into a double play by the pitcher, end of inning. You're like, come on, man.
Right. You get a leadoff double.
Means nothing. Means nothing. All right. Let me squeeze this one in before the break because there's not a lot to discuss, but it's funny to reflect. Jose said this. He says, Dave Gettleman was the worst GM in the past decade for the Giants, trading Odell, the Nate Solder contract, trading away from Parsons for Kadarius Toney, trading BJ Hill for Billy Price, Saquon at 2, Kenny Galladay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Boy, those are some black guys, huh? That ain't great. That ain't great.
Now, can I defend him on Odell? What has Odell Beckham done since he left the Giants?
Maybe it could have been different, Kyle, if he stayed with the Giants.
I mean, he had 1,035 yards for Cleveland in 19, and he hasn't posted 600 receiving yards in a season since.
He was best for the Giants. He could have kept them. He could have built on a career that looked like it was destined for Canton. The rest of that's pretty bad, though, man.
Yeah, a lot of that's really bad, yeah.
And he drafted Daniel Jones. He signed him up for Daniel Jones.
But he was all about it. He fell in love with him watching the Senior Bowl.
But those are massive.
We were there, sitting in the box. We watched him. He was leaning over the railings.
I know. Man.
Watching Daniel operate.
Dave was a good. You could feel his presence. He came into rooms. He was always brought a lot of energy. I liked being around Dave Gettleman. Questionable history.
The rap sheet is not great right now.
Not great.
Yeah.
All right. More to get into on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us.
Wow. Okay. No teeth.
No.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to this one from Chris, not Schubert. Anytime a team pays a quarterback a market contract, ready for this? They must win a Super Bowl with that quarterback for the deal to have been worth it.
So there's been like 5 quarterback contracts in the last 20 years that have been worth it. Is that what we're saying?
That's what Chris is saying.
This makes me think of the Giannis quote when they lost in the playoffs.
Yes. Amen, brother. Go on.
Well, the long and the short of it is Giannis is like, did you get a raise? Did you get a raise this year? Did you get a promotion this year? If every year you don't get a promotion, does that mean you were a failure this year? Right? Like, I get it. Yeah, the entire objective of playing the game is to win a championship. I understand that. And maybe I'd feel differently if, like, my teams won a playoff game in the last 20 years. Maybe you'd feel differently if your teams won a Super Bowl in your lifetime, or maybe I'd feel differently if my teams won a Super Bowl in my lifetime, right? But I can't allow the only defining variable of whether or not you were successful or not to be this one thing that so much of it, whether you like to admit it or not, is dependent on chance.
Mm-hmm.
There's been years the best team by chance did not win the Super Bowl. And it doesn't mean they didn't have a good team or they didn't have good process or that they didn't have successful things that were part of that. So I vehemently disagree with this take just based on the principle that you can only define success and worth by one binary, almost 132 every year, and it's really not equally 132 odds every year measure of success.
If the Bills' next 5 years are exactly the same as the previous 5 years, every dollar they've given Josh Allen will 100% have been worth it.
It's great perspective, especially when you consider, you and I talked about this, I think it was yesterday in the pre-show, about like generations of fans.
Yeah.
What Josh Allen is going to bring, regardless of whether or not he wins the Super Bowl in the next 5 years. We talked about like there's a void in generations of fans that exist because of the dark times, right? Yep. And like relevancy breeds the lifeblood of your fan base and continues to grow and expand your fan base, which then makes you as the owner of a team. It's an investment, not just in the player, but then the player and how he serves as an ambassador for your team is an investment that comes back to you infinitely with fans wanting to root for your team because of the player that you invested.
All the way out on this one, Chris. I got to pick and choose. Okay, so I sent you a link in the chat, and this is to work with Dolphins Craze and their take. Okay. Dolphins Craze says, by far, the best bet for value in NFL division winners is the Minnesota Vikings at plus 350 at FanDuel. So Kyle in front of him and I in front of me, we're on FanDuel.com, and we have the odds for every division, every team, and their odds to win the division and like where the value is. I would agree that plus 350 for Minnesota is great value. It's obviously a complicating path because of the Packers, Lions, and even the upstart Bears. Do you see a better value bet than the Vikings at plus 350? Dallas at plus 490?
You might want to get that now. You might want to get Dallas at 490 now before they trade for Jalen Ramsey.
Denver at plus 320?
I don't think that's a better value
than Minnesota.
I'm looking at the NFC West.
Rams and 49ers are tied at plus 170.
And I don't think the 49ers should have plus 170. They're stealing your money, in my opinion, for that.
Yeah.
A lot of transition with that football team. I look at Arizona plus 400 and Seattle plus 500.
Those are good.
I think that's really compelling value in a division that I think is going to be open for teams that were dramatically improved last year and have coaches going into year 2 and year 3 respectively. And the Rams, like you're a Matthew Stafford injury ways an older quarterback from, I think, that division being wide open. I think the Rams are the class of the division, but Matt Stafford's kind of been banged up in recent years, and we contemplated retirement before we got the 2-year contract with the contract adjustment. And I know you probably contemplated retirement just to leverage, get the contract extension done. So I get all that. But I look at that division and say, if the leader in the clubhouse has a quarterback injury, any of the other 3 teams could win it. I don't feel that way about the North. Like you could tell me, hey, Minnesota, the only team standing in your way of being wide open and it's there for the taking is Detroit. Like Green Bay, obviously, is going to have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
So I would pick probably Arizona or Seattle at plus 400 or 500 as a better value bet than Minnesota, even though I think Minnesota is more likely to win their division than either Arizona or Seattle.
It's interesting that our entire conversation was centered around Dallas, Minnesota, and the NFC West. We didn't even think anything about AFC teams. There's no value in the AFC.
Yeah, because
Denver's the best one, in my opinion.
So they're better. It's better value than the Chargers because the Broncos have better payout odds than the Chargers, right? We agree.
The Chargers at plus 280. Yeah, I mean,
but both of those odds, just on a numbers perspective, aren't as good as Minnesota plus 350, who's obviously a very good football team, won 14 games last year.
Yeah.
So the teams that have worse odds than plus 350 in the AFC, the Raiders plus 1100, no. Right? Like
no, it's not.
Even if Kansas City falls apart, no.
No. There's two other playoff teams in that division.
Tennessee, who just had the number 1 overall pick. Maybe.
Yeah, because I think that division's I think Houston's defense is going to set the floor for that team. And you'd like to think they kind of take a step offensively, but we'll see.
So it's like I can take the Titans at plus 750 as the team that just had the number 1 overall pick in the draft, or I can pick Minnesota at plus 350, who won 14 games last year.
Right.
And has Kevin O'Connell as one of the best coaches in football. I like my odds better of hitting that one. Cleveland plus 3,100. Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph the quarterback.
If Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback, would you care?
I think they should go get Kirk Cousins.
If Kirk Cousins was their quarterback,
I would care about Kirk Cousins over Mason Rudolph. Yeah.
So if that was equal, if it was plus 350 with they get Kirk Cousins, Pittsburgh's at plus 350. Is that better? Is that better than Minnesota?
Wagon, man. And Baltimore just found out this week or John Harbaugh just said this week, hey, our Darius Washington tore his Achilles, but it was a clean tear, so we're expecting him back November, December. Get out of here, man.
Yeah, I think a lot of Baltimore. They got to especially regular season Baltimore, they're winning that division.
They're going to be a wagon. Yeah. And then you have Jets plus 1,600, and then Patriots and Dolphins at plus 550 in the East with a team that's won that division. Is it 6 straight years?
5.
It will be 6 straight years. So
see, a lot of love for the Patriots, Cal. A lot of love.
I know. Yeah. I see 10, 11, 12. I see 13 projected wins for New England, and they're favored in 11. So
smash the over.
Smash the over?
What is the we should look win totals for New England. So the way that FanDuel breaks this down is they give you different odds for different thresholds.
Over 9.5 plus 190. Sprint the card in. If
right, I mean, honestly,
if you're in New England media, they're sprinting that card in. I can tell you that.
You get plus 190. Wow. Yeah, you should do it if you believe in it.
Well, I will not be putting any action on any of the win totals for New England.
No, I'm not touching it.
We're probably a year away from having a lot of conviction on the Patriots one way or another. It's because a lot had to change.
Yeah, but I think, what did they win? 4 games last year?
They'll probably win double that at least.
Yeah, I think their floor is probably 7 wins. I think they could push for 10. 7 to 10 wins.
We just did the schedule. A lot of likable games on the schedule.
Geez, brother, that's a good point. Smash the over on the 9.5. I don't tell you.
That'd
be a heck of a jump, man. 4 wins to 10.
I don't think.
Does that happen in the NFL?
Yeah, I think the record's 10.
Like 10-game improvement?
Yeah, I know the 08 Dolphins went from 1-15 to 11-5. So I think that's the record. I think another team has tied it.
I would love to know the answer to this. So is it the largest single season win improvement in NFL history is a 16-game leap? The record was achieved by the 99 St. Louis Rams, who improved from 4-12 to 13-3. They're counting playoff wins.
Yeah, that's dumb. Don't do that.
Come on, AI. What is that? I really care about regular season wins. So change in win percentage. The Colts, the 98 Colts to the 99 Colts, at a 63% jump. You're right. The Dolphins 7-8. So that's the two. They both jump 63% year over year in win percentage.
Yeah. And who was the first one? The Colts?
It's the Colts and the Dolphins are tied. The 98 to 99 Colts and 2007 to 2008 Dolphins.
So 99 Colts and 2008 Dolphins.
What was the quarterback change in Miami that year? Was that what happened?
That was Chad Pennington year. They're going to go to war with David Garrard and got Chad Pennington, and they got cut in the summertime.
Really? And that resulted in the greatest win percentage increase in NFL history.
That's right.
People need to talk more about it. Let's talk more about it.
We can't. We're out of time. We got to get out of here, man.
Yeah,
clock's ticking.
Get out.
That's going to do it for us. Locked on NFL Scouting. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. We hope you guys enjoyed. Enjoy your weekend. We will be back again on Monday for more NFL talk.